Hey guys, it's your girl Esther. Welcome to another episode of IYMI, in case you missed it, the podcast. Today's episode is entitled Goodness Gracious Grief. And we have a special guest, First Lady Mrs. Anita Frederick. We thank God for her life and we can't wait to hear her story on how she's navigated and experienced grief. Keep on listening, guys. Going back to getting personal, this episode is entitled Goodness Gracious Grief. And for the listeners that are listening in, please share your experience with grief, how you experienced it, how your faith helped you, and a little backstory of everything that went on when you experienced grief. How was that for you?
Okay, so I was just a young girl I'm still young too, but I got married. It took me a while, almost a year, to conceive. And then my first kids was twins, 2 boys. Excited. I felt like I'm the most blessed woman in the world. I had them. I was happy, but the struggle in raising kids, being a first-time mom, it wasn't easy for me. And working as well, it wasn't easy for me, but I enjoyed it. It got to a point I was building my whole life around them. I didn't go out on Saturdays, weddings, funeral, nothing. I was dedicating everything. I was lost in the world of my twins. So, I was enjoying the journey till their 3rd birthday. Probably before that, one of them had asthma, which is something that's normal with twins. But we were managing it. Every month it comes, he gets the crisis, we go to the hospital, we go through whatever they tell us to go. We had all what it takes to manage it when it comes. So one day he went to school, he left for school. When we were going to school, he was fine, taking selfies with my phone. He was the active of them all. I was at work, I was called that your boy is not well. I told the teacher, I have everything he needs to manage whatever it is in his bag. So later I called, should I come for him? She said, he's stable now, he's sleeping. So just relax. When you close from work, you can pick him up. I closed from work, I picked him up. I allowed him to sleep. I think about 4 or 5 hours, my nanny came telling me he said he wants Milo. So I had to attend to him myself. I was giving him the Milo he said he wasn't going to take. Why? He said no. And I said, okay, you are sleeping. So there was this thing I used to do for him. I nebulize him to clear his lungs. Because when the asthma comes, it's like they find it difficult to breathe. So I try to nebulize him to clear his lungs. So I checked the time. I said, it's been long. You did it in school. So let me nebulize you once again so you can sleep for a while. Then I can do what I was doing. So I started the nebulization. I just put the thing on his nose and then he just pulled it off. And then he started screaming, "Mommy, mommy." So he was called JD Dyer. So, and I used to call him JD. I said, JD, what's wrong? And it was like he was choking. So I told him, cough. Can you cough? Can you cough? And he was trying to cough. And he said, mommy, mommy. So then I had to give him to my nanny. So I told my nanny to take him and that I'm just rushing to get my purse and my car key to rush him to the hospital. So at that time, being a pastor's wife, we normally have guys that comes around to pray. So lucky for me, I had 2 guys outside who were coming to pray for that particular day. So normally they come, they wait for a while and they start in the evening. So when the guy heard this, he also bumped in and then took him. So I went out. They were standing at the gates waiting for me. So when I got to the gates, the boy was like, he's off. Then I said, what do you mean? So he had his teeth clenched together And it was so tight. So I tried putting my hand in his mouth. I had to turn him upside down, hitting him. And my husband wasn't at home then. I couldn't drive. So I made the boy carry him, and then we rushed to the roadside because I knew I couldn't drive in that state. I don't know what happened. So we rushed to the roadside, and then we picked a taxi. So the two guys were with me, and then he was with the guys at the back. I was in front. On the road, I was just praying. I was praying. And when I prayed and I would shout his name, I told them to be beating him. And we got to the hospital. When we got to the hospital, we took him to emergency. The doctor came. The doctor just, I don't know what he did. I think his pulse or his temperature. And he told me that, he's dead. At that time, I didn't accept it. I didn't accept it. So I was like, what are you telling me? So quick, on the way, I called my husband that this is what is going on and that I'm rushing him to the hospital. So wherever you are, come. When the doctor, I accepted, then I started praising God at the emergency ward. I was on the floor singing praises and worshiping God. I said, no. So I called my husband. I told him, the doctor is saying something I do not accept. Yeah. And I can't accept. So you come. And he was asking me, what is the doctor saying? I said, I don't want to say it with my mouth. I don't accept what he's saying. So he also rushed. He got there quickly, and then he also came in with guys. He saw the boy. He started praying at the emergency. He started praying. He prayed for like 30 minutes, and I wasn't even looking at them. I was just going about the hospital. I had also called my parents to come in. I think my nanny called them. So my mom also, they all came in. At that time, I didn't know what was going on. So I told my husband, you know what, let's carry him home because there's nothing wrong with him. So I wanted to carry him, and my husband himself carried him. So we carried him back home. And then we started praying. I was praying. Everybody was praying. We had prayer. The guys were already at home. I was in the hospital. My husband had him in his arms outside, the compound, and he was also praying. So when I pray, I come back, then I come to hit him. Then I'm like, Didi, what are you doing? We prayed till you see when the dew started falling. It started to rain. I think it was around 11:30, getting to dawn. So I was. They were praying outside. I was in the sitting room. I was just going back and forth. So my husband called me, and then he held my hand, and then he told me we should take him to the hospital. But the way he held my hand, he was telling me something, but I didn't want to accept anything anybody was telling me.
Yeah.
So let's take him to the hospital. I've been telling you this all this while. So in the car, he was lying on my husband, and my mom was at the side, and I was in the middle. So as we were going, my husband would hold him, squeeze him tight, and then he would be crying. And I told him he should stop what he's doing and that there's nothing wrong with him. He's fine. So, on the way, I'll just hit him, and then I'll be scratching his feet. Oh, did you get up? What are you doing? I know when you sleep, this is how you are. Then I'll just hit him. Just get up. You're scaring everybody. So we got to the hospital, and then we took him to another hospital. That was where the hospital I gave birth, I had them. We took them there. Then quickly they rushed him to emergency, and then they had to. So the first thing they did was that I think they checked his pulse again, and then his temperature. So when they checked it, I looked at the doctor checked it, and then they all looked at the nurse and doctor. They looked at each other, and the doctor had to pull me away and ask me what happened. And I said, why are you asking me what happened? My son is not well. I've brought him. Just put a drip on him or something, or, do something. He's unconscious.
Yeah.
Then the doctor told me that I had to hear it for the second time. That was when I accepted it, that my boy is gone. At that time, I couldn't look at him again. When I accepted that he was gone, I didn't even go peep or have a glance at him, just to find myself looking at a dead son. I didn't look, I just went out of the emergency room, and then I broke down. In fact, I was on the floor. I was on my mom asking. I was shocked. At a point, I would laugh. At a point, I would cry. At a point, I would sit. I was just, in fact, I was in a state, I didn't understand what was going on. They had to put me in the car. I'll just get out of the car. In fact, I can't explain how I was feeling. So after that, I couldn't even go home. So I had to go to a friend's house. No, that day I went home, yes. And at night, waking up the next day to tell people that my son is gone, people will come around. It was all shock. And with my husband and I, the healing process for the two of us is another story to tell, because we would both cry. I would just look at him, ask questions. I'm like, what is happening? Then I'll tell him, can't they do anything? We should call. So I'll call one of the church guys. Where have they taken him? Can you go to wherever they've taken him to find out? Maybe he's sitting, maybe he's... I was just all over the place asking questions.
Yeah.
So the next day, people came around. When you come, it's like nothing has happened. You see me and I'm just talking to you, like, because it was difficult to accept.
Yeah.
People came around. And one other thing that also happened was that because he was a twin, it happened on a Friday. On a Sunday, we had to go to church. My husband had to go and preach. And that I was in church. I was just there. Being in church, I was just there. Praises, I would pray, I would worship. I was just there, but I was physically there, but mentally, I wasn't there.
Yeah, which is totally understandable. Totally understandable, you know.
And I want you to know, Anita, that whatever you were going through was very normal. You were grieving, you were in shock, you were in denial. It was something that you just did. It came naturally. That was the love that was within you as a mother that was working. You had certainly gone through something that no mother, no person should go through. And it was totally understandable.
You know, even me, myself, as a mother of a 3-year-old, I have a 3-year-old son. And I'm just like, I'm trying to, I totally get exactly what you're saying, because as a Christian, you know, the first thing that you're going to think is not me, not my child. This is not me.
Yeah.
You know, and you actually had that faith where you got from the hospital. You didn't even accept it. You didn't even use your mouth to say, you know, what the doctor was telling you. You went home and you prayed and you worshipped and you prayed and you worshipped till morning. Till morning.
Yeah.
So and as a Christian woman myself,
It's
I mean,
difficult. Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. It's
completely difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
To even, and for your husband to hold your hand and tell you through touch that this one, dear, you know, how was that? How did your relationship with God, how did it affect your relationship with God? Because I know that you had the faith that, you know, your son was going to revive, something was going to happen. So how did you finally, you know, accept that this is what is happening, and that all the prayers and all everything that you were doing, just said he's gone? How are you able to navigate that?
It was tough. It was tough in the sense that you are asking questions, you're not getting answers. And it's like, have I done something wrong?
Yeah.
Or is it a bloodline? And my aunties, you know, family members, they'll come around and like, hey, this thing has never happened before, not in our family. And you go to church. With my relationship with God, it was quite dicey because, you know, I had the other one too. He had a twin, and like I said, we went to church on Sunday, and after church we went home. The other one is the older one, Judah. He didn't have asthma, but I realized the same thing that was happening to JD on Friday, he started going through the same thing on that Sunday night.
No.
So we came home, my mom was around, we came home and he was coughing phlegms. And my mom, she being an older woman, she said, no, there's something happening and that we must pray. And then because he knew he was a twin, he was asking of his brother.
Yeah.
And we told him he's at the hospital. So he said, when he wasn't feeling well that Sunday evening that we closed from church, he was saying, take me to the hospital, take me to the hospital. He was indirectly, he meant he wanted to see the brother.
Yeah.
Take me to the hospital, take me to the hospital. So we took him to the hospital. The doctor checked him as well. And the doctor was like, half of his lungs is blocked. He never had asthma.
Hey.
So they had to...
Sort of fibrosis. Exactly. You know, this thing about psychosomatic symptoms. Obviously, he knew there was something wrong because of his connection, his spiritual as well as emotional connection with his brother. He knew there was something wrong. So he was manifesting the same symptoms that his brother had. Yeah. You poor thing.
So when we went to the hospital, they had to admit him to that night. And that night, they had to put drip on, they had to, put whatever they would put on him and then put oxygen on him. Because they said he wasn't getting enough oxygen. So I was like, no, if I don't stop grieving the other one and stand in for this one, I am going to lose this one too. So that night, we didn't sleep. At the hospital, my husband and I, he was broken. So, at the point I have to be strong. At the point you have to be, it was a bit dicey. Yeah. So I would hold his hands. We pray at night. And my boy was like, mommy. He had the drip on him. He would just pull it off. I want water. We'll give him water. He was helpless the whole night. We prayed the whole night. And then the next morning, the doctor came to check him. They were checking his pulse. The doctor would check his pulse and he would shake his head. The doctor would check his pulse and he would shake his head. So lucky for me, in the morning, my husband told me he had a dream that an angel came in and, saved him. In fact, he was also, we were going to lose him too. But he had a dream, an angel had come in to do something on him, and that this one will leave. I thought, he was just saying encouraging things to yes. So the doctor came in, he shook his head. So, and the dream he had manifested. A pediatrician came in, a pediatrician was not supposed to work for that day, came in, heard the whole thing, that I've lost one boy, and one boy is also at the ward fighting for his life. So she came in, checked the pulse, and then she held my hands and she told me, you are not going to lose this one. Mm-hmm. So she had to, I don't know what she did. She was putting a lot of it. She called for this, put it in the oxygen, call for this, put it in the oxygen, call for this, put it on the oxygen, quickly arrange for an ambulance for us. And then later, for about an hour, she checked the pulse again, and she was like, he's okay. Now you can take him to 37 Military Hospital. That is a bigger hospital that can cater for him. So it was that pediatrician, that she was the angel that came in to save him that very day. And before that doctor that was on duty that very night, when the other doctors came in the morning, they got angry that if a boy's lungs are blocked, why do you put oxygen on him? Because, you are blocking it the more. The oxygen is not, it's not working. So he was, worsening the whole situation. So it was that doctor that came in the morning, changed everything. God used her to save the whole situation for that period.
Absolutely.
So at that point, I had to just let go of the one who is dead and fight for the one who is alive. So we took him to 37, and calls had already gone out that this is what is happening. So we had to go through protocol, and then we got a place for Judah. In the hospital, my boy was manifesting death. 3 years boy was telling me, Mommy, I want to die.
Oh.
I have never seen Mommy. That was when I believed in the bond of twins. I always say 2 days, 3 days became like a whole year to me. It was so fast. Mommy, I want to die. Mommy, leave me alone. Mommy, I want to die. Mommy, I see JD. Mommy, look at, he was just talking. I think he was manifesting what he was seeing. And I will be praying, Judah, he will not die. Then I'll tell him to manifest. When he says this, then I'll tell him to manifest. He'll counter with what he said. Then he also say, Mommy, I will not die. I will leave. Then you'll be sitting with him, and then he'll tap you, Mommy, I want to die. So it was a battle. I had to pray and fight for him. So after a week, I think we were at the hospital for like 4 days. We went home. And then the next day, we had to bury JD. And to date, like I said, I couldn't look at him. I couldn't accept seeing a dead son. So I don't know what he looked like when he was dead. I attempted going to see him for the last time, and I don't know what happened, but when I got to the door, I couldn't feel my legs. It was like I was hanging in the air. So they had to carry me away. I was shouting, I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs. So they had to take me away. I don't know where they buried him. I've still not had the courage to go, give my last respects. I have still not had the courage. And with my journey with God, it's been dicey. It's been dicey because it's like you have to trust in Him and hold on. At a point, you're on the edge of giving up. You go to church, there's praises and worship going on, and there's this voice that's telling you, why are you worshiping and praising the God who has watched you, who has watched your son die? Like where was he when all these things were happening to you. So I'll just leave service, go to the washroom and weep. And as I am weeping, I am still crying to the same God. I mean, it's like your mind is telling you something, but your heart is still clinged to God. And all I was saying is that, Father, Lord, give me strength. I can't do this. My faith is going weaker and weaker. At every given time, I can't stand the voices. I mean, it's like at a point, you are losing faith, and when you are crying, it's the same God you call. It's like you don't have anyone.
Yeah.
So it was a bit dicey. When you think of it, as in, you begin to ask questions. God, why did this thing happen to me? Why did I mean, what was it for? Did I do anything wrong? Are you still there? And then you break down. And then you begin to ask for strength from him again. And I begin to ask for forgiveness. If there's any way I've offended you, have mercy. I need you to strengthen me. I need you to help me. So it was like that.
I think, Auntie Esme shared with us earlier on, she touched on the different stages of grief, and that, a lot of it begins with denial and not wanting to accept what is happening and the things that we're encountering before we eventually, if at all, come to a place of even slight acceptance. And you touched on, Lady Anita, when the sort of over the next few days after Jenny had passed, that you had visitors coming to the house, and I want us to talk about what often gets left out, particularly in our culture, which is the dicey mix between spirituality and culture. Very little space, there's very little room for individuals to be, for them to navigate, for them to experience the different layers of grief, because First Lady aside, pastor's wife aside, just you being a Black African Ghanaian woman, it's very difficult. There are lots of rules, there are lots of cultural expectations when grief of this extent or to this extent happens. And how do we balance that? How do we advise people? How did you balance culture and spirituality? You touched on it. You said there were times where you were upset with this God and you were disappointed and you were trying to understand the rationale behind it, but then also it's the same God that you were praying to for the strength, for the understanding, for the peace, which we rightly understand. But how do we balance that, if at all, spirituality and our culture? How do we deal with that? How do we balance that when it comes to grief?
I think people don't get it. They don't get it. It's one thing culture says when a child dies, you are not supposed to talk about him. I remember my mom used to do that a lot. When you mention his name, it's like, don't mention his name. Get over it. Don't talk about it.
Meanwhile, it's like, how could you not mention his name? He was your son. He was born.
Yeah.
He spent 3 years on this earth. You know?
Yeah. And they tell you, don't talk about it. And when you talk about it, it's like you're encouraging it and act like, forget about him and focus on the rest. And it's like you're being suppressed. Culture says, they say something, like if your child, if you have a child who's dead for the first time, you don't cry. They give you, you don't feel like eating, they force you to eat. It's like they don't allow you to go through the process of healing. They want you to act strong. They want you to act like nothing has happened. And you try to tell them, let me be, like, and they don't get it. Like, it's culture. It's when you grieve him, it's like you want it to happen again. So don't grieve him.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the Bible says that that there's a time to grieve.
Yes.
And that's because God understands that there are things, that need to leave the body, that need to leave with the individual, that need to help us navigate those experiences. Yeah. And that keeping them in actually does not edify us, and neither does it benefit us. But more importantly, it doesn't glorify God. And work through those motions. So that's
because imagine if you kept all of that in you. It's like you have some resentment and bitterness towards God, because at the end of the day, you pray to God for God to, reverse the whole situation, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So if you're being told to suppress this, you end up growing with some bitterness in you. Like, even when you're praying Christ, like, I'm praying, but is it really going to happen? Because you didn't do it for me the last time. That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Really.
And it gets to a point you feel like nobody understands you.
Yeah.
So what I used to do was I was doing my own research, trying to find people who are going through what I was going through.
Yeah.
And that was one of my healing processes. Like, I could go to YouTube and watch videos on grief, people who have lost their kids, and I could connect, because whatever they were saying, I could connect. So I hear them talk and how they went through it. I got to a point I was researching when people die, where they go. Is my son okay? Taking care of him? Where is he? I was researching death virtually. I mean, I wanted to understand things.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's nobody you can talk to. Nobody understands you. And when you're trying to talk to other people, or they tell you, no, don't talk about it. No, forget about it. And just let it be.
I would like to say something, Anita.
Yeah.
You haven't done anything wrong. You are a very loving mother. You're very normal. There's no reason why you should suppress your grief just so somebody feels comfortable.
Yeah.
In our culture, I don't think they have malevolent reasons why people don't want you to talk about death. I think what it is a misplaced value. They wanted to make you happy. They wanted to comfort you.
Yeah.
So it's like there are two others. Have you had the third one at that time?
Yeah, the third one was one.
Yes, so they wanted you to concentrate on the living, but they perhaps did it wrong. What this tells me is that in our culture, we need bereavement counseling. I have been in your position. And therefore, I understand exactly what you're talking about. When you feel as if your bowels are being corroded by some corrosive liquid, and yet you're told to smile. In your case, you were a first lady of a church, and you had to exhibit your faith. But God understands that you are human, and you can grieve, and you are allowed to grieve.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when you are grieving, you can say anything. God understands even when you question him. Are you there? Yeah. Why did this happen to my son? Why is this happening to my family? Even Jesus cried, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani.
Yeah.
So why? Jesus came because he was a man. He was made a man for him to understand and empathize with how we feel. And therefore, you've done nothing wrong. You can grieve all you like, but one thing I can advise you, I didn't have the pleasure of having my son grow up to be 3. But you know what you can do? Go to where he's been buried and talk to him. It is therapeutic. It will heal you. Don't pretend it hasn't happened. It has happened. So go there. That angel that your husband dreamt about coming to save your other son would have been his brother. That angel, because he had become God's, and therefore he was an angel. And his wanting to die was that bond that is between twins, that they are knitted together, and they can nobody can break that bond, even now. Okay, so you know what? Go and find where he was laid and pay your respects. He is or was your son.
Mm-hmm.
Was your son.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a loving mother. And therefore, nothing can replace him. I don't have the pleasure of knowing where my 2 children that I lost were buried. I don't. But I have that gnawing feeling, especially when I saw in England somebody who had sextuplets, and they were like little mice, and they all survived. And my children were big because we were born prematurely. I had them at 30 weeks. One lived for 4 days, the other lived for an hour. You know, and our culture, we need to do something. Perhaps this is where you millennials can do something about this. In the sense that you will empower people who have been through your situation to grieve. Tell them it's all right to grieve. Not where my generation says, no, forget about it. You don't forget. No mother forgets the birth pangs. No mother, even if it's a cesarean, you will not forget. So don't forget him, because he lived. He was a boy. He was a son. And if you must cry now, do so. Don't apologize to anybody. It is your prerogative. You are a very brave and loving mother. I really admire you for that.
For going to the graveside, I think my father-in-law passed away last 2 years. We went to the same place. They pointed, this is where your son was buried. I just took my eyes off. I've still not had the courage. Maybe I would have to, if
you do,
myself.
If you do find the courage, it will be a healing process for you. Okay? And you should also remember to keep his memory alive for his other twin.
I have that. We used to do a lot of videos, a lot of so that's what keeps me going. And
were they identical twins or
no, they were not. They were not. But the bond between the two of them was, I didn't even know the other one was also going to his own, because he was 3 then. He couldn't express himself that much. What was going on? But when he was like 4, he could tell me whatever happened. From start to finish.
Wow.
Not knowing he had everything, and he was also asking me questions. He would ask me questions, and I would answer him because I knew what he was going to. He would ask me, Mommy, so where is JD? Which hospital is he in? Then I would tell him, I'll point the hospital. So it got to a point when we are driving past the hospital and there's someone in the car, he would tell you, my brother is here. This is where my brother is. This is where my brother is. So when he was like 5 years, he would ask questions again, Mommy, where is he? So I had to tell him, you know what? He's dead. He's gone to heaven. Then he asked questions till he was 6, or even so he was 6. He'll be 7 next month. And then he will ask, when he's trying to talk about his family, he included him.
Good. Excellent.
He included him.
And make sure he does all the time. And things that you feel as well, note them down and read it to him later. That's part of his life. It's never going to go away. It's part of his experience.
Yeah. He will tell me, Mommy, recently he came, Mommy. I said, what is it? He said, don't you think JD pretended to be dead so that he'll go and be with God and angels in heaven? Maybe he wants to be in heaven. Then I said, yes, he's in heaven watching over you. Then he will come, Mommy. So if JD hasn't died, it would have been 4, right? Then I'll say yes. I got to, because I I knew what grief was, and I knew that he was grieving him. I was answering every question he was asking. But the culture, when he's around or he goes to my mom or my dad and he's trying to talk about him, they will suppress him. No, don't mention his name. Don't talk about it. Then he will come and tell me, Mommy, why don't they want me to talk about JD? Isn't he my brother?
Is there a chance of letting your parents know that you'd rather they answer his questions and make it as real as possible for him?
I think before we get to that, though, there is, something that we all need to acknowledge here, that questions can only be answered when an answer is available. And the reason why with the older generation, which Auntie Esme touched on earlier, I believe that the answers are not there is because it's not culturally accepted or appropriate to talk about. They see death as a very literal thing, i.e. this is the age you were born, this is the age that you died, and this is where your story ends. And so to be talking about a person in retrospect, as cutthroat as this may sound, I am trying to describe why and what I envisage to be the reason why for so many years this has been the bedrock of our culture. It's because it's easier to cope. It's easier to not have to refer back to memories that actually, if a child were 3 and a living child at the age of 3, those memories of that child are not necessarily by way of our culture deemed substantial. Oh, there were 3, you're a 3-year-old. We're talking to a live child today, and you'll ask what they got up to when they were 3 years old. To be able to recount that and to recall those experiences, an elderly person today would probably say very generic things because it's easier to say, oh, not before. They used to like playing football. Oh, now they're always running. They say very generic things because it's easier to categorize a child as being childlike. And so when a child is inquiring about a sibling who has passed away, if you don't have those memories as an elderly person or a seasoned person or an older person for that child, you haven't got the answers. And so it's easier, and now has become culture, to say, put it away, leave it there, don't talk about it. They
don't even want you to mention his name. Like when my mom is talking and he's like, I don't want to mention his name. I'm like, mention it. He lived.
What does it do? I want to let's break it down. With by way of no disrespect to our older listeners and our own aunties, grandparents, and mothers and fathers, but what will happen? I want to know literally what is going to happen if we mention the name of the dead. Do they rise again? Will they haunt us? Are we in danger? I want to understand that part of our culture. What's going to happen?
I think you've answered it already, Karen, when you said that they just see it as this person is alive, this person is dead. So that's it.
Yeah, it's like, you know that he had like...
Exactly, it's not necessary. Yeah. And bearing in mind, our culture has gone back many years. This is some things that have been embedded in their minds for years. So sometimes they don't even have the answers as to why they don't want to talk about it. They just don't. They just don't have a reason.
Yeah.
So it's up to us to tell our children to tell our children how we should deal with certain things.
Absolutely.
And I feel like Lady Anita, you're in a good position to teach Judah that, listen, you had a brother and his name was Jedediah. He was like this, he was this, because it would be a shame. It would be a shame to kill the memory of him in your family as if he never existed, as if God didn't give him to you to begin with.
I have a lot of memories of him that I've saved them on my drive. I saved them for him.
Yeah,
I had to let him when he was 5. That was when he could communicate properly. So I gave the memories to him to watch, go through it, watch all the videos, watch all the pictures. If he would ask me questions and all that, and I think he's better now. Do you feel like your husband grieves differently to you? Yes. Because he is a man. Men, they don't talk. With my husband, I didn't even know what he was going through Till I think recently we couldn't even sit to talk about it. Because I noticed every time I'm talking and I mention his name, he could go off the whole day. He could go off the whole day. He won't talk. He'll be quiet. He will. And it was for the first time since my boy died. I think it was the beginning of this year that I heard him address people and like preaching that he's been able to mention the death of his son. That was when I knew that he was healing.
After 3 years.
After it was this year. Yeah, after 3 years. After 4 years.
4 years now.
It will be the 4th year. Yeah. It was this year that he could preach and mention the death of his son. I think, yes, he mentioned it in January. We're having a workers' retreat, and then he cited as an example. Then I knew he's also healing. And then I think last month or so, he was preaching about gratitude and all that. And then he, like when you're going through something, maybe you're on a journey, and then he also used that to cite an example. He didn't have the confidence and the courage to also talk about it. And one time, I didn't even know, we were having a deep, talk last 2 weeks, and he was telling me he could also hide himself somewhere and weep. And because he is the man, he had to act strong for me and for the family. So he wasn't showing me that side. And because I was also grieving, a mother who is, in that mood, I couldn't even notice what he was going through. I didn't know what he was going through. So we had that conversation, and then he had to tell me what he was going through. He would also go to pray in a park, and he would cry through it throughout. So there was this song that was being sung in church, and then when we're driving home, he told me that song held him through the whole journey. And I said, I never knew this. I never knew this.
And you know what? Sorry to interject. I was going to say, sometimes I want to say it's okay not to know. If not immediately, it's okay not to know, because grief is very personal.
It's personal, yeah.
Your instance, you have parents grieving the loss of your son. And the human mind would tell us, okay, well, he was equally a son to you both. And so therefore, why can you not grieve together, or why can you not have together? But it doesn't always work that way. And I think the two of you more specifically, which hopefully we'll touch on as part of our next question, being a first lady, being a pastor, an apostle of a church, and having a number of people to look after and who look to you, like you both do. I guess for some reason or the other, there is an inclination to have to assume strength or almost speed up your grief, if at all even have one, So let's talk about, what that looks like and why it has to look that way. Sure, why it has to look that way for people in faith, in the Christian faith. It may be the same for other faiths. I can only speak for the faith that I am familiar with. Why does it have to look like that? We know that people are dependent on you, and you have regular scheduled programming, i.e. on a Sunday, prayer meeting this day. What can we do differently so that everybody has an equal opportunity to grieve, irrespective of what their responsibility is to other people?
I don't know what the people we shepherd should, first of all, we should let them know that we are also human. Right? We have our down moments. We have our weak moments. But we have created this. We've created this thing for them to. It's like they rely on us for when they are down. We are there for them. So they see you to be that strong personality. They see you to be that person who, this person she's strong. Sometimes they make certain things, when they see you praying, so like you're praying in church and they'll quote, hey, so lady, you can pray like this. Do you go through things? Like, I was having a ladies meeting and one lady was like, you people, when I see lady praying like that, I'm even shocked because I think she has nothing to pray about. And I was shocked to hear that. I'm like, we are human beings just like you are. We are just there as spiritual parents, as sometimes you're there to counsel you and all that. But whatever you go through as human beings, we also go through it. But it's like there's this notion that once you are a leader, you are expected to be strong every time. You're expected to be, like, to have it all. So I think we must teach our people to know that a leader has weaknesses, a leader has their down moments, a leader also go through whatever you go through.
Absolutely.
That is true. That is very true. A leader, human in every sense.
Yeah.
And a leader can also feel isolated.
Yeah.
Even our Lord felt isolated at some point when he knew that his death was at hand, and he asked his disciples to wait with him and pray with him. He went away to pray, came back and found them sleeping. Imagine if it were you. You see what I mean? So yes, leaders grieve and must grieve. Otherwise, they will never be able to empathize with their flock.
Yeah.
So if you grieve and you communicate, because after all, this program that we are doing is basically to try and change or right a wrong that is in our culture, isn't it? So if as a leader, you know how it feels, and you are allowed to grieve, you are allowed to feel isolated, you are allowed to feel you may be isolated now, but morning will come. It's night now, morning will come. I never thought morning will come when I lost my two children, one after the other. Morning came. Other disasters. Morning will always come. But it doesn't mean that you will forget. You won't forget. But God gives us what we can bear for us to be able to teach others. That is my view. And perhaps when we're able to teach others how painful things are and how they should deal with their pain, they will be able to also pass it on instead of telling people, don't cry, don't mention his or her name, and don't so talk on. About it. Because they are men, they have no feelings. And so you were surprised, for example, how hurt your husband was. He's human. He's human.
Because he was acting strong. He wasn't showing that.
But that's what society wanted him to be. And he was trying to pander to society. But he was hurting. So if we put ourselves in the shoes of somebody else, try to empathize with them, we will know how they feel. Because after all, he was part of them too.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And imagine a loving father who comes home and has to play with the children, and suddenly one is not there. What did Jesus say? That if he has 100 sheep, one gets missing.
Yeah.
He goes and finds it. He will find it.
Leave the rest of the and find the one that's missing. Yeah.
Now look at the other side. When he can't find him, he has had to put him in the ground. He can't find him. And he would know that he will never get the closure that he needs. But it will come with time.
Yeah.
It will come with time. As I said earlier, you are brave. He is brave. I believe that God gave you this pill for you to be able to empathize with other people. So your ministry is to Tell other people how it feels like. Cry if you must, even when you're talking, but know that he has never and will never desert you.
Yeah. But Auntie, the thing is, it's like you don't want to. Auntie, ask me. It's like you don't want to look vulnerable before your people.
I understand that, but crying is for the strong, actually.
Absolutely.
You will never look vulnerable before people. If you cry and you say, yes, he was, and yes, he's gone, and yes, I feel the pain, but yes, I will continue. That is strength.
Yeah.
It's what you choose to do after the tears.
Yeah.
What, in essence, strength.
So you will never look vulnerable before, but that just because you're crying, that makes you vulnerable. Are we heartless? No, we're not. Everybody understands. Everybody understands how it is, but because culture says, forget, they will cry secretly and come and stand in front of people and pretend the person was not.
Yeah.
It is wrong. Perhaps that is one of the blocks that we have in our culture that makes people fail to love.
Absolutely.
Have you stopped loving your son because he's gone? No, you still love him.
No.
Love never goes away. Love never, ever goes away. So love him. And the way you can love him is to say, I miss you and I love you. And you're gone and I wish you were here. But God loves you best. So you've gone to a better place. What more can be more sacrificial?
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You are strong. Keep on being strong. But the strong cry. Cry if you must. But go and visit him. Take flowers. Sit with him. Talk to him. Somebody passing may think you are mad. You are not. You are a mother.
My mother-in-law called last week that, I don't know, she said she had a dream. My son told him, even when he died, I learned, because they said he's so young, the grief side, they didn't really do anything. They didn't really do anything, casting the concrete, making it
nice and
all that. They didn't allow us to do anything of that sort.
Okay, so go back there and
do that. We are encouraging it.
Encouraging what? What is the it?
We're not encouraging anything.
We're encouraging it. It's like I am happy with what has happened.
Hey,
no, that's not true. That is not true at all. So go back to where he was buried and
honor him
and honor him.
Yeah,
he was here one time. Honor him. Put a caption on his gravestone. A much loved son. Okay, do it, and people will also. And one thing I've seen in Ghana is that it takes one person to start something, and everybody does.
Everybody will.
Hundreds of thousands of other women do it. Do it. Let people who don't understand say, "Oh, you shouldn't have done it because you are encouraging." You're not encouraging anything. You are encouraging love, even when the person is gone.
And a correct trajectory towards healing. Yes. More importantly, a child deserves to be honored. Going into, grieving the loss of life, that and knowing that child so blemishless and so innocent, going on to the Father is an honor enough. But they deserve to have some form of legacy. 3 years is still a significant amount of time.
He was here for 3 solid years.
Yeah, it's fundamental.
3 years.
And that child deserves.
Remember when COVID started? And we all thought, oh my goodness. And it's lasted over 3 years. And we feel, imagine if it's there. No. You must honor him. He was a being, a God-given being. How many special people have twins, Special. Very special people have twins. So he gave you the twins for a purpose. One is gone back to him. Honor him.
Actually, I've been feeling that way since the brother will be 7. And he didn't know he was a twin. He knew he had a brother, but he didn't know he was a twin until he started talking about twins. Mommy, do you know this? My friends, you know they are twins. Then we have twins in the estate. Do you know that? Then once I told him, do you know you were a twin too? Then he said, really? And I said, you and Jedediah were twins. He said, really? We were twins? I said, yes. I said, did he look like me? He said, you've seen his pictures. You didn't look like but you were twins. He started asking me questions. So we celebrate the same birthday? I said, yes.
Wow.
Explain fraternal twins to him. Explain identical twins and fraternal twins, and he will understand. Make him understand. Paint a beautiful picture of their relationship, and he will carry it with him forever.
Forever, yeah.
And because he's allowed to. Sorry, but this is what this podcast is for. You know, it's not to defy or to deny the status quo in any way, shape, or form. It's just to speak the facts that we know to be true. You are allowed to have certain feelings. You're allowed to navigate those feelings, irrespective of your gender, whether you're a man or a woman. There is no set way to be, you know, and whether you're a boy or a girl, there's no set way to be either. And if he wants to ask questions up until the age of 90, 100 plus, and there are, you know, still answers to be given at that time, so be it. You know, it's what allows for that person to feel close and full and whole and healed. That is the most important thing. And you know, we're grateful to those who have gone before us, and we're grateful for family who at the time that they were being nurtured and reared to a certain age, in a certain dispensation, a certain, you know, demographic of society, they were being reared and nurtured a certain way. But things are evolving, you know, and find answers, like you said to us, via YouTube and Google and other places, and focus groups and community groups. You can find answers. And so it's only right to be able to have conversations and respectful, actually, to answer questions when questions are posed from people who are closest to us, you know, in the form of Judah. So like Auntie Esme said, you know, you're doing phenomenally, and it's not easy, especially when you have, you know, your responsibilities, you have children, you have a husband, you also have a ministry, you know, as well. But there are so many other parts to you as you know, in addition, that also needs your attention. And so we can only hope and continue to pray that God will continue to restore your joy and strengthen you and empower you, and also allow for you to recognize that in due course, when the time is right, there will be an opportunity for you to navigate the remainder of that process of grief and of grieving, and use it for your good, and also to honor Jedi, because he deserves it, you know. And there are no cultural sayings or cultural limitations that should make any person feel exactly that, limited. You should be free to navigate that in entirety. So
can I chip in something?
Yeah,
that was discussed earlier about individual grieving.
Yeah,
I happen to have a divergent view from you, Karen Grace. Can you jog my memory? What was I saying?
You were just about to say that you have a differing view regarding grieving, when I mentioned about acknowledging or recognizing that sometimes.
Oh, you're in the car.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to come into the car to charge my phone.
Okay. So I said that sometimes the gentleman or the woman, in either way, you know, the journey to grieving can start very separately. Maybe because you can't discuss things or whatever it might be, or you need to take your time, or you're not sure how to articulate yourself, or like you said, you often end up seeing that the man feels he needs to be a stronger vessel to help the woman navigate. And Auntie has any sentiments about that.
I have a totally divergent view on grieving by a couple. I think for your own happiness, Anita, it's best to grieve together. It does not mean that you don't acknowledge that he will have a different way of grieving. But it's best for you to be able to communicate with each other about how you feel, about what you would have liked, about what you would have done with the boy, your son, and so on. So it's best that you are able to talk together for your own sanity and for his sanity. But as it is now, you were even shocked to find out he was grieving because you thought he was being strong. No. You know, the stronger a man is, the more he cries. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people are not in touch with their feelings. So they pretend they're all strong by not crying. And when you don't cry, you break. It's like tension that builds within you such that there will be a point where there will be a break. And that this kind of thing has destroyed a lot of marriages.
Yeah.
Where they can't see eye to eye even in grieving. And therefore there comes a time when resentment sets in. Okay.
As you asked me, I think I tried talking about it. I always tried talking about him, but I think he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready because anytime I mentioned it, he would just go off. So it was like he was still. I mean, maybe that was his way of grieving. He was grieving.
It's not that he went off. Did you look at it this way? That he probably was so hurt deep inside him, he just could not articulate what it was. It was not that he went off. He was thinking of what might have been. He was thinking of what might have been. So that's the time where he needs you to hold his hand too and be with him because he was also hurting. Imagine what happens. Everyone goes to the woman and everyone thinks, the man is strong. No, it's not always like that. Yes, I know there are some callous beings who probably will behave as if nothing has happened, but they are also hurting.
Yeah.
All the time. So even if he goes off and you want to talk, but hold his hand because he was in pain, just as you were. The only difference is you could articulate yours and he could not.
Okay.
Oh, it's a powerful conversation. Really powerful. So my
God never gives us what we cannot bear. You've born it beautifully. Look at you.
I know.
You've born it beautifully. And you will be fine. Trust me. You will be fine. Can I ask how old you are?
I'm 32.
32.
Sorry.
You're still young. Would you like to have more children?
Well, I've had another one after him. I had a girl.
Okay.
I had one after the twins, and then exactly a year that he died, I had a girl. Exactly a year, the same week. Pardon?
Does she look like him?
He looks like him, does everything like him. So I remember in my grief, one time I closed from work, I was broken, I just knelt down and I cried. I said, Lord, I just need you to do one thing for me. Give me a compensation. I just need a compensation to fill in that gap because I don't know how long I can hold on to this. I don't know how long I can take this. So just give me a compensation, something to fill in that gap. And exactly a year, JD died on the 22nd of June. And I had Mercedes on the 27th of June. That was the following year. Exactly a year. The same very week. And when she came, I saw my mom pull my sister, and I heard that they didn't want me to know. You know, as usual, she was like, "Hey, the banana was samba no." Like it's the it was the same thing.
For striking.
And when she acts like him, so bubbly, that confidence. At 3, he could talk. Like he was a talkative. Like he could talk very clearly and all that. And Mercedes will be 3 in June, and she talks just like Chidida, just like him. The way she giggles, the way she plays, everything just like him.
Mm-hmm.
And the bond between her and the older one is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
So she's replaced the twin.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you a little story. There's a young lady, beautiful young lady, who was my office manager. And she had one boy, one girl. The boy came first. And they were both, they both had sickle cells.
Mm.
Along the line, at about 9 years, the boy died. And she was heartbroken.
Mm.
To cut along, so she wasn't even in the country to see her son because her husband lived in the US. She had come from the US, so she came down to Ghana to prepare for him to also join them. And then this boy died when she had gone away to be with the husband, obviously to help him to come back to Ghana. And they had to come in grief. So it was like they didn't want to live in Ghana anymore. So they decided to return to the States with the little girl. So now they had one child. But when they went to the States, they had another one. Okay? And then along the line came another baby. This was a girl also. So there was one boy, would have been one boy and 3 girls. But the last girl was the exact spitting image of the boy who passed away. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, the first girl would have also died because they were both SS.
Oh.
And there's a new technology for sickle cell babies.
Mm.
So they decided to try that because hers was that bad. She could not even eat. 1 grain of rice was enough for her. I'm telling you. And she was really lean. This new baby, so they said they were going to do a bone marrow transplant. And guess what? The new baby, who looked exactly like this young man who died, was the exact match for the sister. So she now had a child who would save the other child. And they did the transplant. And you should see them. They bloomed and they look wonderful. And the older girl is now in university. And you would not think that I was that lean little girl who was frail and was dying. Kwame had to go for somebody else, for the new little girl to help her sister live.
Mm.
Yeah.
So something has to die for something to live.
Yeah.
It's still such a bitter pill to swallow, honestly, because our human feelings will always have us want, why can't we have both? Why can't we still,
you could have both, but unfortunately, this is the reality.
Mm.
And God knows best.
So she sits there, just like you, saying that the new baby looks like him. That's how my friend, also my former office manager and now friend, looks at this thing. That this new baby saved the big sister. Mm-hmm. And they're doing very, very well. It will happen for you.
Amen.
Oh, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. We'll never have the full answer.
It's a tough one, but you know, it's such a beautiful thing to have a good relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
You may not get the answers, you may not get whatever, but there's this peace that you find within.
Mm-hmm.
There's this comfort that you find within. You realize that at a point you are comforted. At the point you find peace. At the point you know that you feel like nothing is lost.
Mm. Mm.
Do it all, nothing is lost.
Mm.
You are comforted. There is this comfort you find in Christ.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So through it all, it's like you are never left alone.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, you will find comfort. You will find peace. And like I said, I asked for a compensation and I got it. So I look at Mercedes and my heart is happy that really God hears me